Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Taproom Success. I'm Andrew Copeland, joined by my buddy Carrie Shumway. Carrie, I feel like summer's winding down. My son starts school in less than 2 weeks, but I know we have a little bit more to summer. But how is the second half of your summer playing out?
It goes so fast, doesn't it? It always like July 4th comes and then it's like, oh, summer's over and it's just kind of like speeds through. So we're trying to slow it down. We're trying to do different things. We just went to a Red Sox game on Sunday, which was fantastic. So just trying to like squeeze the last, and in summer I'm in New England and summer could last through mid-October or a little longer. So I'm
So we're going to
hopeful that
go off script for a second because the other day
yeah.
when you were texting me about the baseball game, I had texted you that I was at a baseball themed brewery near me. And one thing I loved, it was Studley Brewing. I really loved when you order a flight and everybody close your eyes. They give you like a wood flight board shaped like a baseball diamond, and each base is essentially one of the tasters. And in the center, it's like a mini baseball bat you use to carry it to and fro. So when the server is delivering it, they're holding the baseball bat and bringing you your bases of a flight, which I absolutely love. It goes so well with their brand. But Carrie, you were at a real baseball game, so you kind of one upped me a little bit on the Sunday baseball experience. But what's something at the Red Sox game that happened that you thought was just a really neat touch?
Oh gosh. Well, let's think about that. A neat
And if you
touch.
can't think of anything, Blake, who's a Yankees fan, will probably throw that in your face.
Ha. Well, I think what they do, and this isn't, I'm not sure this is, unique or different, but Fenway, I'm partial because it's Red Sox. I've been a fan my whole life, and I've been to Fenway a lot. But what I've noticed, I think, in recent years, and this cuts both ways for certain fans. There's this weird sort of thing like, oh, if you're not a real fan, if you don't do X, I don't subscribe to that. I think this is about entertainment as well. So when you go to these games, there's a real sense of camaraderie and community. And sometimes it's just silly little songs, right? They do the Neil Diamond Sweet Caroline song, and some people make fun of that, like, oh, you're not a real fan. But everybody, imagine 38,000 people singing, and you just feel like, wow, really connected to this cool experience. And it's summer and the weather's beautiful. And lo and behold, here comes the beer vendor. Thank goodness. And so I think it's just the whole thing, and just the history of the place. Um, it didn't hurt that we had really good seats. We were near the dugout. The kind of funny story was, you want to get a ball when you go to a game, and it's also like, who cares if you get it or not? But it's just sort of and so we had about a half a dozen chances, like balls, literally like, oh, it landed right in the row in front of me, and I had bought two beers, put them by my feet, and the very first ball that was tossed to me, I thought I could get a shot at it. I kicked both beers over,
Oh,
created a river of beer going down.
that's $50 in beer, Carrie.
It was almost $50, so that was very discouraging. But then again, I'm like, well, the beer vendor's going to come around again, and we'll just refresh those things. But so honestly, it was kind of the whole vibe. And maybe this ties into what we always talk about is, it's the experience, right? You
It
remember, those
does.
are
Yeah.
memories. And,
Because
you
when
know,
you're talking about everything that happened at the baseball game, you didn't mention once, beside the foul ball, but that didn't even happen on the field. You didn't talk about the game at all. You're mentioning the songs, the vendors, knocking your beers over. It's every other thing outside the real reason you're arguably there
yeah,
that you remembered more than the actual game itself. And I think that, I joke, maybe not really joke, that beer is secondary these days
yeah,
because it's truly everything else that makes a really big difference. And
yeah.
for today, we love James Clear. Everybody's probably tired of us talking about James Clear, but read Atomic Habits if you haven't already, because today you want to talk about just how a little habit can change everything. So tell us a little bit about the piece you recently wrote out.
Yeah, so I think, in order to have those great experiences, we need to have a great business. And I think most people know that, but we also don't really know where to start. Like, well, yeah, I get it. I need a great business. I need more people to come in. I need to be cash flow. I need profitability. But what is something like, what's an action item? What's like a tangible thing that I can do? Uh, and the piece was called The 1 Hour Habit That Changes Everything, the 1 hour weekly habit that changes everything. And the concept behind it is that, we're, taproom owners and managers super busy. You're running around, but generally we're working in the business, right? This whole concept of and we don't always create time to work on the business. So my recommendation is to create a simple weekly financially focused huddle meeting, um, where you set aside 30 minutes the same day, the same time every week. And the goal is not to just sit around and talk about the numbers, it's really to create a rhythm where you're looking at a handful of your most important metrics, if you will. You're talking about, hey, what's working, what's not working, and then you can decide what you're going to do about it. Um, Very often, when I'm working with breweries, we're looking at the numbers maybe once a month, and we're often looking backwards, what happened. But these weekly meetings are the opportunity to really see the problems developing so that we can do something about them while there's still time and, turning those numbers into action. So that's really the habit is how do you kind of create it? And those are some starting points.
So the financial huddle, but how do you recommend that taproom owners and managers actually get this going?
Well, it's interesting. So we'll borrow from James Clear, right? In terms of like any habit, and I like what he says, and it's fairly easy to get your head around. Habits, changing behaviors is hard, But basically, what he would say is you've got to make it easy, you got to make it repeatable. So the starting point would be just simply put the meeting on the calendar for the same day and the same time every week. And maybe Monday morning works well because you can review what happened the prior week and what happened over the weekend and decide kind of what needs to happen next. So I particularly like that, because the week gets away from us fast, right? It's like all of a sudden it's like I had all these great intentions and now it's Thursday. I didn't do any of the things that I was hoping for this week. So that Monday morning cadence I think can work.
I think Monday mornings are fantastic. That's when I take the time for me. Granted, I'm not having financial huddle like you're talking about, but I sit down with a coffee at one of my favorite coffee shops where I can focus despite all the background noise. And I think about my goals for the week. I look at the last week and say, what did I not accomplish that I need to work on, and how can I get there to achieve these things this week? It's my time for 2 hours to focus, and it's on my calendar every week. No meetings, no distractions, and I think that's a big thing. Putting yourself in a spot where you're not going to let others take you off topic.
Yeah. And I also like this concept of sort of pre-deciding things so that you don't have, because we get this concept of decision fatigue where it's like, oh, when are we going to meet? Well, I can't do it here. And scheduling, frankly, for me is exhausting. So it's, if you just say, look, we're not going to even think about it. It's the same day, it's the same time. Pick what works for you, but be really regimented in saying, we're not going to decide this every time. We wake up Monday morning at 10 a.m. or whatever makes sense for your business. But the other thing I would say is keep it short. You don't need to be looking at tons of information. You really don't want a long meeting. So start with 30 minutes, pick 3 to 5 numbers that really matter. And the importance here is consistency. Is a lot of times what I'll see is we start with great intentions and then something comes up because you know what? Something always comes up. There's always something that's going to be distracting us from it. So it's really like consistency. Don't cancel the meeting because you're busy, because that's usually when you need it most. So
I
make it
like
part
it.
of the operating rhythm of your tap room. And just it's we meet every Monday, we look at our numbers, we decide what we're going to do next, and then we get back to business.
So you talk about numbers. What should we do next? Are there any other things that should be covered during these weekly sessions, and what results can managers expect from them?
Yeah, I think from a just sort of a tactical standpoint, I think it's important to write things down. So I would have like a very simple scorecard. There's so many, we say this a lot. You get so much data, you got point of sale, you got brewery software, maybe you get this, you get that. So just, go old school if it works for you, very simple scorecard and just write down what are our 3 to 5 numbers, what were our actual results, what are the targets we're shooting for, what are the gaps that we see, and how might we close those gaps. And I've been sharing more and more of this. Basically, it's a one-page worksheet, where you have your, let's just say 3 KPIs. Let's say it's how many people came in, what they spend, and what's your revenue per barrel, right? And then what are your respective targets, and then where are you at? But the real power of it is not just like, oh, what happened? It's forecasting what do we expect to happen and how are we going to make it happen. So we say 3 action items. So for each KPI, what are 3 things? You don't have to do all three, but it really activates you to say, all right, we're not seeing the traffic that we want. And then you and I hear that all the time. Well, what are 3 things we could do? And then as a group, you talk that through. And Hey, go to taproomsuccess.com and Google that question and you'll get, 20 or 30 ideas. So you don't have to like, it doesn't have to be like starting from scratch. There's lots of stuff out there. So those are some things to think about. But it's also like what's, kind of going back to those core questions, like what's working now? How do we do more? What's not working? How do we fix it or lean away from it? And, what are we going to do about it? So those numbers are there to drive behavior, not just be like, oh, we need to track this because we're trying to create a business. No, it's to drive that behavior.
Fantastic. And we're going to just keep pushing it on you all. Schedule this meeting right away. If you don't have this weekly financial huddle, get with your team, find the time that works on your calendar, and take the steps to turning this into a weekly habit.
There you go. That's it. And that would be my one action item, one takeaway is just pick a day, pick a time, make it 30 minutes, come up with your key metrics. If you don't have them or you don't want to think about them, I would use the ones Andrew and I talk about all the time. What are your total customer visits? And that could be transactions on your point of sale. What's your average guest check? What does that look like? And then revenue per barrel, that's a little bit of a different one. But I particularly like that one because then you can see like, all right, how would we increase sales? Sometimes you don't need to sell more beer. You just need to sell maybe different sizes. Maybe it's flights, maybe it's small pours. There's lots of ways to think about that. But when you're tracking it and you're reporting on it, and you get that weekly cadence down, you get those 52 weeks a year to work on your business and not just in it.
I love it. So, everybody, we're going to hold you accountable to this next time we see you at the Taproom Success Mastermind or Industry Expert session. We're going to ask you, when are your financial huddles scheduled? If you're not already part of our community, you can join at taproomsuccess.com. We have the live meetups, but we also have tons of hours of pre-recorded content and lessons for you all. But we want to leave you with one more thing. I gave a book recommendation last episode. Carrie, it's your turn.
Okay, so everybody hold on to your hats. This one's going to be a departure because usually it's just all business books all the time, all self-improvement all the time. And this one I guess would maybe fall into the self-improvement category, but it's called Nonviolent Communication, uh, a Language of Life. Have you read
I
this?
read that book as well.
You have read
I think it's been a little bit, but the title Nonviolent Communication probably is not the best title for that.
it. Well, it's memorable. It's maybe not most descriptive, but I think I don't think the reason behind the title, nonviolent, is that we do communicate. A lot of the communications come across as hurtful or misinterpreted or maybe even violent. And a lot of times that's even our how we have our own self-talk. You're an idiot. You shouldn't have done. I mean, these are violent. That's an extreme kind of way to phrase it. But if you think about it, that's kind of what it is. So why do I recommend this book and how is it relevant to taproom managers? Because you're probably like, wow, this I don't understand how this is. Well, I think probably the second or third biggest issue that you and I hear about is staff, and they're not doing what I tell them to do this, and they're not doing it. So I would suggest picking up a copy of this, or even just go to your favorite AI tool and say, hey, give me a summary of how the concepts in this book could help me better manage my staff, better interact with them, better understand my staff, better communicate with them. So here's just a couple of real quick takeaways. There's a lot in the book, and frankly, I'm still trying to absorb and learn it and figure out how to apply it. But I'll hand off a couple things. First is when we are observing something, and I'll try to give examples like, all right, I'm a taproom manager. I'm observing that the staff they're just not doing the job. I've told them they need to clean, they need to do this and that. They're just simply not doing it. I come up with checklists, I come up with rewards and punishments. Nothing seems to work. So one of the concepts in the book is to separate the observation from the evaluation, from the judgment. Because a lot of times we'll say, oh, I see that, Joe is not wiping down the counters. I just see that. Oh, interesting. So hold that away from the evaluation, which is Joe never does the job, right? We always kind of conflate the two and it becomes a mess. And what that becomes is a judgment. And when we talk to Joe, he gets defensive, right? And he feels threatened. And as opposed to if we separate the two, observation, hey, Joe, I'm seeing that you're not wiping down the counters. Talk to me about that. As simple as that is, It may be overly simplified, not a great example, but I think we see this in everyday life where we always combine the two. So that's one. The other one, and I'll stop after this, is, you know, what are the needs? We all have needs as individuals, as humans. We have needs, but we don't often do a very good job of stating what those needs are. So maybe in that example of Joe not cleaning, the observation is, "Hey, Joe, I see you're not cleaning the counter. My job is to make sure the customers have a great experience. My need that's not being fulfilled is they're coming in the places it's kind of dirty." And then you follow it up with a request. Would you be willing to, you know, make sure that, take the extra couple minutes, and would you be willing to do that? Because it's a request as opposed to a demand. And that's the last point I guess I would make here is that people don't often respond well to demands. Let's say you're taking away their autonomy. They don't want to be told what to do, but they'll respond better to a request. Now, I know as a manager and owner, you're thinking, why on earth would I request someone to do something they should be doing when I'm paying? Well, that's fine. Yeah, I totally reasonable. But if you want the outcome, sometimes we got to meet people where they are. So I think this book has just a lot of incredible wisdom in it that we can apply. And it takes practice. I guess that's the other takeaways. These are really interesting concepts and ideas, but they're not super duper easy to implement because it requires us to kind of maybe set our own ego at the door and take a bigger picture view of it.
And I think it's a really good recommendation because we talk a lot about, empowering our team, getting to be brand advocates, just creating workplaces where everybody feels valued. And you can have all these ideas, but unless you're able to communicate effectively and customize your communication for each team member, you're not going to succeed with it. So I love books like this, Carrie. And it's once again, it's been a bit since I've read it, but I did really enjoy it as well. So good call out.
Well, I read it a couple years ago, and then I thought, wow, that's so interesting. And I tried some of the things, and then as they do, they fade. And then I'm reading again, and I got the book on tape because I'm like, this is too important
Wait, I
for
want to pause
me.
there. Do you
Yeah.
actually have it on tape?
I said tape, but it's more the Audible. You just get it on your phone. Hey,
Gary gets the tapes mailed to him from the folks over at Audible. He's the only one.
oh, bro, I used to love that. I actually miss that. Netflix sending you the discs too. Don't you miss that?
I do remember it, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, the problem is that you can't. Nobody even has a cassette tape, and there's no player. You can't even play these things. Your
Yeah.
cars don't have them. I'm telling you, man, I'm gonna wax nostalgic. I miss those days where it was just like, oh, just play me the tape. I don't want to be
That's,
futzing around with my app and my phone freezes up, and I like the old school ways too.
I love it. Well, for everybody who wants to have more conversation about Taproom's book recommendations, insight from others, just ideas, a place we can all kind of see what's working across the country, that's Taproom Success for you. We've got monthly mastermind sessions. I'm looking forward to that one coming up. We've got industry expert sessions where we're bringing in people who have knowledge that you want to soak in. Tons of pre-recorded content. Taproomsuccess.com. I believe this will probably still be summer when we're listening. So everybody have a great rest of the summer. Stay busy and we'll see you soon. Cheers.